Hello, everyone. This is your friendly neighborhood podcast. I'm Kyle Swope, and joining me today is not my co-host, Josh Myers. It's actually, we have a guest co-host. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Colin Donato. Say hi, Colin.
Howdy.
Yes. So Colin's going to be joining us today. We're going to be having a lot of fun things. I know we have not done an episode in a while, so we're going to discuss a few things here. For one, we apologize for not having much content out. Me and Josh's schedules just having a hard time coming together because we're both, very busy outside of, the world of podcasting. So we are doing this episode, though, which is fantastic. It is also our first video podcast episode. Yes, you're hearing me correctly. So if you'd rather watch this podcast as opposed to just listening to it, feel free, check out Lumberjay Media on YouTube. That's my YouTube channel. That's where we are going to be posting them. I'm also going to go back and post our previous episodes. We don't have videos for them, but just so that they're available on YouTube for people who want to watch from that. But anyways, so there's your housekeeping. We are working on getting some new things in order. We're innovation. That's why we have video, which is fantastic. But Colin, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. So here's kind of what our plan is for today. We're going to do something interesting. We each have a list of 5 comic book movies, superhero movies, and we are going to, well, they're ones that most people consider to be bad, okay? Or like never heard of, doesn't get any talk about. And we're going to state our reasoning as to why we think that these movies are good or not as bad as people treat them, if that makes sense. So Colin, you want to start us off with your first movie? And then as you state it, make your case for it.
All right, so mine is one that's been getting like a little more hype recently, especially with the release of Spider-Man No Way Home.
We got to put a spoiler warning in right here. Spoiler warning, okay? Continue.
Yeah. All right, so The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is a movie that's kind of been trash since it came out because of the quick pacing, the pretty bad writing. But overall, I think the action in the movie was fantastic, and the performance by Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone is what kind of made the movie amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely get you. Well, see, I was considering putting that on my own list because I also love that movie. I understand there are a few reasons why I think people wouldn't like it, but like, I don't know. I don't see any problems with it in general. Like, I'd rather watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2 over The Amazing Spider-Man 1.
I agree.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Which, a nitpick I always hear, I don't know why everyone brings this up for some reason, but like every time I've listened to someone critique the movie with spoilers, they always bring up the fact that Electro in like the Power Grid or whatever plays the Itsy Bitsy Spider is like so stupid. And I'm like,
That was so cool.
I know. It's like, why is that a problem? I mean, I understand it might be like cheesy or whatever, but it's ironic because it's Spider-Man. Duh.
Which pretty much was the whole point,
Yeah, I know.
to be just the irony of it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that whole action sequence in general, fighting Electro, was probably some of the best Spider-Man action I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
The whole movie has some of the best action scenes in any Spider-Man movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would probably, I definitely agree with that. Well, I think action-wise, compared to probably the entirety of the Sam Raimi trilogy, that movie's got better action than any 3 of those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's good. Another thing, like Electro, I prefer his blue look. Like, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but like...
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah.
It makes more sense for the character. Like, he's like living electric pretty much.
Exactly. Well, and also they're basing it off the like Ultimate Spider-Man design, which I also really like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I liked a lot of things they did in the Ultimate Comics, but I know that's also sort of controversial. But anyways, yeah, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I haven't seen it in a while though, so like I'd love to talk more in depth about it, but yeah, I can't really think of anything else to say really other than I enjoyed it. I will say though, the thing I hated the most, like the worst handled thing, I think, was Green Goblin.
Yeah, it was way too rushed with that. I'd agree.
Oh yeah, well it was rushed. The design was ugly, like just straight up.
Yeah, it wasn't. I wouldn't really say Goblin. I've seen like lots of people like jokingly compare it to like a crack addict.
It's true though. It's true. Yeah, he does look like a homeless guy with like a suit of armor and a gliding thingy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say I think the driving force of that movie that's really good. Now I'm thinking about it, is you mentioned the relationship between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. Like Peter and not MJ. Sorry, all the other Spider-Man movies are
Gwen.
MJ. Yeah, Gwen.
Yeah.
I think that's good too because that's really like the actual story of the movie is mostly following them and has nothing to do with the villains, which I think is good. But I think that also might be one of the reasons why people don't like the film in general.
Personally, that's like one of my favorite parts of the film is just the chemistry between them is like some of the best I've seen, like not just in superhero movies, but like any movie in general. Like their chemistry is perfect.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, also like my thing too. I think the other night when we saw each other in person, I think I told you this, but Gwen Stacy is my favorite out of all the live action like love interest for Peter Parker we've seen. She's my favorite hands down because she just seems so able and not like a damsel in distress type. Because if you look at MJ in the Sam Raimi movies, that character is very like every single movie at the end, she is the damsel in distress. The Amazing Spider-Man, Gwen is not the damsel in distress at all in the first one. In the second one, I mean, she's a little bit because, you know, again, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie when it came out, like, how many years ago? Was it 6 years ago? No. More than 6.
8 years ago now.
Yeah, it's going on. That feels weird to say. Anyways.
It doesn't feel that long ago.
Yeah, I know, it doesn't. But, yeah, if you haven't seen a movie that came out 8 years ago, when Gwen Stacy dies at the end, like, that's the only real damsel in distress moment we get with Gwen Stacy.
Not really in distress, really in like in death.
Yeah, but either way, you know, like I really like the Gwen Stacy character. I like what they did. I liked in general the direction they were trying to take the Amazing Spider-Man series, even though it didn't quite work out. And there were some things I have nitpicks about. But yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2 was pretty solid. I got to give that credit. Alrighty, so do you have any more thoughts on the Amazing Spider-Man 2 before we move on?
I'd say that's about it.
Okay, sounds good.
You?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I have a lot of very unpopular opinions and hot takes. So the real question is, do you want me to start my list from the most controversial or the least controversial?
I'd say most controversial.
Okay. Now I got to figure out which one's the most controversial. Okay, I'm not sure you're going to like this, okay? X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh man, you're starting it off. You're setting the bar really low.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I'll state my case for it quick. So, X-Men Origins Wolverine, I think it does a lot of things really well. It does it does a lot of things. Well, let me put it like this. It does a lot of things good, but then a few things really, really bad, okay? And I think people keep looking at those things and just ignore the stuff that's good. For example, I think the plot is pretty good. I mean, it's not like airtight. There are some issues you can definitely point out with it. Its place in the timeline does not make any sense at all, given, you know, the reboots and the craziness. But, I mean, that's the X-Men series in general. Obviously, Deadpool is an atrocity in that movie. Which, I will say, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, like the opening part before, you know, he gets his mouth sewn shut and becomes this weird mutant thingy. Like, that's pretty good, I think. I think it's a good, like, trial run before they were going to bring him into, like, the full-fledged Deadpool character. So I think that was really good. I enjoyed that version of Deadpool that we got until, you know, the big third act. That was pretty bad. But, like, the story, it's pretty solid. It's good Wolverine action. The CGI claws, yeah, they look a little weird. But other than that, I find the movie very enjoyable. It was also one of my first X-Men movies I've seen. So maybe there's a bit of nostalgia hitting that too. My next most controversial one on here is also one that I have some nostalgia with. So I'm a little biased, but oh well, that's kind of my case. What do you think, Colin?
Well, I remember seeing that in theaters and like, yeah, like a nostalgia with it. Like as a kid, I was like, this movie's so cool. Like I thought the Deadpool character was cool. Like as a kid, not really having like tons of knowledge of the comic Deadpool at the time. And then like years later after it came out, like rewatching it, like you're like, this movie's kind of garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is just like it's iconic to everyone who grew up with him, and like just him fighting is awesome. Any of his fighting is cool, but the whole third act fight is just so stupid. Like when he cuts off the. I don't know if you can call that Deadpool technically. The sewn
Ryan
shut
Reynolds character. We'll just call him Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds character with sword arms when he cuts off the head and it just like spins around with the lasers and the thing. I was like, that's so cool. Like some of the action sequences are pretty neat in it.
Oh yeah.
But doesn't really live up to anything that it's supposedly set up
Mm-hmm.
because like they just reboot like after that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But one thing I want to point out too that I forgot to mention in my defense is I know I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, like horribly wrong, but I think it's like Lev Schreiber, something like that, Scheider, something. The guy that played Sabretooth.
Yeah, Sabretooth.
Yeah, something I can't pronounce his name, but either way, I think he did a fantastic job as well, especially compared to the Sabretooth that we saw in the first X-Men movie, which felt very odd. You seen the first X-Men lately?
Not in many years, I'd say
Okay.
probably.
You're not missing out on much, in my opinion. I know that's not what we're talking about right now, but the first X-Men movie is debatably my least favorite. But
Kind of just like a setup in general.
yeah. But either way, like I think they had a lot of good things going for it, and it was trying to start a series of X-Men Origins films, like a X-Men prequel series, basically. And it tried to set some things up, even though it never went anywhere with it because they decided to do a reboot anyways. But yeah, my little sister though, I got her into the X-Men franchise because she wanted to, after WandaVision, she wanted to start getting into the X-Men films, and now she's obsessed with them. So I made a little timeline up where I just hit the films that I thought would be considered important in the timeline, and we watched in chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
And so the second film we watched was X-Men Origins Wolverine, and she uses one word to describe that movie, and that's abomination. Yeah,
That's fair.
I mean, again, I enjoy the movie though. I think there's no problem if someone else enjoys the movie. I get that there's problems with the movie. There's plenty of problems. But all movies have problems, and it's just a matter of it's like entertainment value versus quality. Like I watch a movie for the entertainment value, not for the quality, if that makes sense. If I think I'm going to enjoy this movie, then that's great. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I digress. So, any final thoughts on X-Men Origins Wolverine before we move on?
Just that it's still not any better. I can't agree with you even after your little stance on it.
I don't know. It's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. So I mean, love me, hate me.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. But so Colin, what's your next pick?
So I have Man of Steel,
Oh.
which I've never met anyone who's agreed with me on this movie because I consider it like in the top 10 superhero movies like all time, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think it's just kind of overlooked. People don't like the Snyderverse. People don't like his take on Superman. They don't like his like weird filters he puts in his movies. But I think Man of Steel is the best performance of Superman we got by Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill's perfect for the role. The action sequences are awesome. The take on the character is fantastic. His like origin with when I can't think of his father's name, Kent, Jonathan Kent.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When like his father in like the scene before his father dies, when the tornado's coming, and he just doesn't want Clark to reveal him. The whole scene kind of like sets up all future, and Kevin Costner's performance as Jonathan Kent, I think, is really well done. And just kind of building the Superman world in Man of Steel was done better than I've ever seen it. And there's not very much Superman content out there that's like good, but this is the best it gets.
Yeah, and I would agree largely. I mean, Man of Steel's not my favorite Superman film, but I do have mad respects for it. I have not seen it in a really long time. I've only seen it once, and that was like years ago. I can't remember when. But I don't have any problems with it. I will say, though, and here's something I think's weird, because we're talking about Zack Snyder here. I think it's so weird how people were just dumping and trashing on Zack Snyder, like when Batman vs. Superman came out and stuff, and when Justice League came out. And ever since Zack Snyder's Justice League then came out, that came out in 2020, right? Or was it?
Was it 20? I think it was last year. I can't remember. March of last year.
Yeah, okay, that sounds right. Anyways, as soon as that came out, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Zack Snyder's the greatest. Why did they get rid of him?" And I'm like, "Well, you're the same fans that were trashing him for Man of Steel and Batman versus mostly Batman versus Superman, though. Let's be honest." And yeah, so I think it's crazy. I haven't seen it in a while. I do like it. It is. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Superman movie. That I have another hot take on, but we won't get into that right now. But yeah, definitely good. Henry Cavill is excellent in the role. I completely agree. Another thing I will say, like Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think made Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman better movies.
I could agree with that.
Yeah, because it's almost like, I don't know. It's really interesting because you're looking at it from a studio. The studio basically just wanted Zack Snyder to do the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but with DC characters, which is
Hmm.
not a philosophy that I mean, could it have worked? Yes, but Zack Snyder was like, no, I have this whole original idea, and because that didn't play out, because the studio I feel like kept stepping in, then
Hmm.
it led to the mess of a DC universe we have now in film. But yeah, Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think, really just made the point that he had an idea and it was going well, I guess, until the studio had to come in and mess everything up. Man of Steel's good. I have mad respect for the movie, even though I haven't seen it in a long time.
I think the CGI in action is really well done too,
Yeah.
and I like Henry Cavill's look for Superman. Like I
Mhm.
remember he has like a super hairy chest in the like beginning of the movie, and
Yeah.
like they were like, "Can you like can you shave your chest for the movie?" And he cites like Superman from the '90s with the mullet. He's like, "Well, he had a hairy chest, so I don't see why I can't have a hairy chest also."
Yeah. Well, Henry Cavill in general, I have just mad respect for him as an actor because, like, first of all, everything he's like, well, people talk all the time on the internet about how he's, such like a geek and a fanboy. And because of that,
Hmm.
that's the exact kind of person I want starring in my superhero films because we know that
Yeah.
they're going to have their eye and their mind on quality. Which I think also is interesting because if you think about, again, I keep bringing up Justice League. I know we're talking about Man of Steel here, but keep bringing up Justice League. But you keep hearing about all the like craziness that took place during when Joss Whedon was finishing the movie Justice League. We're not going to get into that right now, but uh, I think part of the reason there was so much backlash and stuff is because I think all the people involved cared so much about the movie and the characters, and they agreed with what Zack
Hmm.
Snyder was doing. That when Joss Whedon came in and decided to screw everything up, they, had a hard time with that. I mean, there's more reasons as well. Again, I'm not going to get into those. It's interesting. Directors' visions, I feel like. I hate when studios try to screw them up too much. And that's the problem with franchises. But I know I almost cut you off there. What were you about to say?
Yeah, I think if there wasn't so much studio involvement, we could have got a lot of better quality stuff from Zack Snyder. But the
Mm-hmm.
studio was just like, we need to push for this whole cinematic universe. We need to compete with Marvel. But if they would have let Zack Snyder do his thing, it could have turned out a lot better, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I think of this too. Like, I know Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman did not get the best reviews and audience reactions, but you also got to keep in mind the studio is messing up those as well. So I wonder if we got for both of those movies Zack Snyder's like pure what's the word I'm looking for, unaffected, I guess, visions, we would have had
Yeah,
completely different
yeah.
movies, and I think they would have been fantastic, all of them, like really good. I mean, they'd be really long, but they'd be good. But
But well, quality over quantity, I guess,
oh yeah.
or quality and quantity together in that
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Oh yeah. Well, also talking about Zack Snyder, Watchmen. Okay, what he did with that. Have you seen Watchmen by any chance? I don't know if you've seen that or not.
Yes, I have. I love that movie's fantastic.
That movie is fantastic. But like Zack Snyder was really the perfect person to have do the DC. Okay. And then the studio just wanted to keep poking. I blame Warner Brothers for that's kind of the point I'm trying to get out here. I blame Warner Brothers for the failure of the DCEU because they kept trying to poke their head in things and they wanted this and they wanted to compete with competition too much. And I think if they would have just let Zack Snyder do his thing and have minimal hands in whatever he was doing, we would have had a whole new DC universe, and it would have been fantastic.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Oh yeah,
Studio involvement just ruins stuff in so many cases.
definitely. So, anyways, I know I'm getting a bit on a tangent here about Zack Snyder and stuff, but Man of Steel. Do you have any final thoughts, Colin, before we move on?
No, not much.
Alrighty, not a problem. You wanted me to do controversial, right? Most controversial to least controversial.
Yeah,
Okay, so my next pick is Batman
I,
and Robin. Yeah, you probably should have seen that coming. But
it was on my list too.
oh, okay. Well, that's great because we can both talk about it then. Here's what I'll do. I'll state my case for Batman and Robin, then you state your case, and then we'll just talk about it. So, Batman and Robin for me, compared to the other Batman movies that were coming out at the time in the original Batman film franchise, it is debatably the worst. I would personally think Batman Forever is worse. That's again another topic for another time. But it had, all these campy characters and colors and stuff, and just did not seem very true to the character at all. But there were some things I really liked about it, okay? For one, if you just shut off your mind and watch the movie with not expecting anything, it's pretty enjoyable. It's kind of stupid, but it's enjoyable. Like, I absolutely love Mr. Freeze and his ice puns, okay? And Arnold Schwarzenegger as that character just feels like a caricature of Mr. Freeze. But I think if you want to watch it for like comedy purposes only, I think it is hilarious, okay? In fact, it's one of the Batman movies that I'm most inclined to rewatch because of how not thick or heavy it is with plot. Which, again, from a movie perspective is a bad thing, but from a personal enjoyment perspective, I like it a lot. I also think George Clooney did an excellent job with what he was given. People keep saying he's the worst Batman, but I think he's one of the best Bruce Waynes we've ever had, quite honestly. Especially because, I think of Bruce Wayne, I think of him as, it's all fake charisma, but he's a very charismatic person. He's this genius, billionaire, playboy type person. Well, he's not really a genius per se. That's more Tony Stark. I'm kind of ripping that from Avengers. But, so there's that. And I think George Clooney is just the perfect person to do that because George Clooney just has a lot of natural charisma. People just like him. So I think that's a perfect choice for the character. But people trash all the reasons that they trash on George Clooney's Batman is because of stuff that Joel Schumacher did. It had nothing to do. It was completely out of George Clooney's control. He was basically just doing at that point what he had to do to get his paycheck because it was not a great filming experience from what I hear. Joel Schumacher was just like, we're making a live cartoon, which was not very good. But like, again, a few things. I will say I love Chris O'Donnell's Robin costume in that movie too. It's really cool because I think it's a really good amalgamation of like Nightwing and Robin put together. We also got our first live-action Batgirl in that movie since the 1960s TV series. So that was pretty cool. I also think it's interesting the whole side plot they had with Alfred, with McGregor syndrome, like getting ready to die. I think that was a really compelling story because I feel like in Batman, they don't talk enough about what he would do if Alfred were to like die, I suppose. Like we've seen, him leaving him for a time or whatever, different things with Alfred, but like, because Alfred is really, if you think about it, with like Batman, the Bat family, he's sort of like the glue. So without him, you'd think things would fall apart or things would go bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's also sort of like the anchor for Bruce Wayne to, like not go off the rails. But anyways, so there's my 2 cents. Colin, you want to make your case?
So what I really liked about it is if you look at like the goofiness and the comics from the golden age, specifically the Batman comics, you're like, these are ridiculous. Like we always think of Batman as a super serious character that he became in the 80s and 90s. And you're like, these comics are so awful compared to the Batman we know now. But Batman just kind of brings out that golden age goofiness that Batman had in the villains in particular, like in Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze. Like Mr. Freeze in particular, like looking at the villain, like you're just like, this is kind of stupid. Like he's just a guy who has a freeze gun. There's so many cold themed villains in DC in general, and you're adding another one to the mix. And like it's just kind of the villains are just goofy, and all Batman's rogues are just kind of like lower tier ones are kind of goofy, and they kind of bring out those goofiness from Batman's villains and put them into this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Makes it look really fun to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, like I don't know. If I were to like rank the Batman movies, Batman and Robin would probably be fairly low on the list. But like if you look at Batman Forever, I think that's far worse. Like it's more serious, but it's less fun. If you get what I'm saying. Not to mention, and this is nothing against Val Kilmer, but I think his performance in Batman Forever as like Bruce Wayne was the flattest Batman performance we've ever had. And I mean, like Val Kilmer, he's an accomplished actor. He's done a lot of things, so I know he could like play it well. But just watching him do the Batman thing, he just seems so flat as both Batman and Bruce Wayne. With just the line delivery.
He doesn't seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he didn't enjoy it. He only did one movie, and yeah, he's gone on and said multiple times. Not that he has any like problems with Batman or the character. It's just not what he wanted to do with his career, I guess. But yeah, Batman and Robin is definitely not the worst Batman movie. I guess that's the big case I'm trying to make. Trying to think what else I thought was really good.
I'd have to agree with you on Robin's costume. I always love Robin in both Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Mhm.
Like I couldn't remember his name, but then when you said it, Chris O'Donnell. I
Yeah.
liked him as Robin. I really enjoyed it.
Mhm. Oh yeah, he was pretty good. I gotta say. I know he's doing some stuff now. He's on like what show is it? NCIS. Insert city name here.
Yeah, it's one of the cop shows.
Yeah, one of those
Yeah.
with LL Cool J. That's right.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, Chris O'Donnell, he did a good performance. Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl, she did a good job as well. Again, like I think everyone did good jobs with what they were given, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I will say though too, and this is really controversial. I did not hate Bane, how they did him in that movie.
I completely forgot about Bane.
Yeah. Well, because the Bane was like a meathead who was just, basically Poison Ivy's pawn, who was just like on steroids the whole time, which I completely
Yeah, he didn't really
understand
do
that.
much.
Yeah, because if you look at the Nightfall comic when Bane made his first big appearance, and was this menacing mastermind who's also really strong, that's a terrible representation. But I think for
Hmm.
the plot, that seemed to work really good and seemed to serve its purpose. I also feel like with like how should I describe this? With Bane's character design, how he looks just in general, like period, comics, movies, everything, he looks like more of a meathead character. Um, so again, I don't blame Joel Schumacher or whoever it is that made Bane this just like big meathead guy, because and not to mention that kept it from having like the problem you see in a lot of like 2000s superhero movies where they try to cram in too many villains. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So it's almost like, in a way, it's probably a good thing that if they had to have Bane in it, they made him this dumb character, because then that's not bloating the plot with another character that has not been fleshed out well enough. I know it's very controversial, but I'm just trying to make a case for a movie most people really hate. So, anyways, long story short, I feel like if they had to include Bane in it, and they did what they did with him, that was okay.
Yeah, and you can't really specifically with having two villains already in the movie. You can't really do much more to try
Mm-hmm.
to give this origin for like a third one or try to give too much to them.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
kind of shove them in there. Don't explain too much with them, and
Mm-hmm.
just go on.
Yeah. I will say, though, if they wanted to save themselves from a mob of angry fanboys, they should have made that character not Bane, and either A, an original character, or B, another Batman like D-list villain that people have like hardly heard of. That would have been a lot safer to do. But
It would have worked a lot better.
yeah, I think people just haven't been able to, like, during that time they were still trying to figure out what worked and what didn't for comic book movies. One thing I feel like, and again, I'm going to have to save my thoughts. I don't want to talk about No Way Home too much, so spoiler warning right here. But one thing about No Way Home that I really liked was that it didn't worry about confusing the audience. Because us comic book fans, I think we're like used to being confused and be thrown all these really abstract concepts to process. And I feel like in No Way Home, they've really took a large step in the direction of craziness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the whole multiverse and stuff. I mean, they did that in Loki a little bit too, but I don't think it was as, I don't know, mind-boggling, if that makes sense, in Loki.
It made a little more sense, I would
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, that's my bat. I can't think of anything else for Batman Robin right now. Do you have any more thoughts about it?
No, not really. Other than let me pull up my credit card.
Oh yeah. See, I thought that was hilarious personally.
I think yeah, it was. It makes
Yeah.
sense. It honestly kind of makes sense in some
Mm-hmm.
ways especially for the movie
Yeah.
that Batman just had his own credit card.
Exactly. Like, again, compared to the movies Michael Keaton were in, Batman and Batman Returns, then you have Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, where there's a huge tone shift between the two movies. Like, for Joel Schumacher's Batman, that made perfect sense, but for Michael Keaton's Batman, it did not. And I feel like the movies would have been perceived a lot differently if they would have established this is one franchise, this is another, they are not connected. I mean, I still don't think people would like him that much, but I think they wouldn't be as blasted as they are now.
Mhm.
But anyways, so yeah, back credit cards, fun. So Colin, you got another pick?
I do. My next one is the Incredible Hulk.
Oh yeah.
So early, really early, like beginnings MCU, second MCU movie. But Edward Norton as Bruce Banner and the Hulk is like we've seen a lot more Mark Ruffalo, but I loved Edward Norton in the role and his performance as Bruce Banner and the Hulk. We see a lot more of like the duality of the character
Mm-hmm.
and how he pretty much hates the Hulk, and it's kind of more of a burden than a power. We see that more like in Thor Ragnarok, kind of,
Yeah.
and I think at the beginning of the Avengers somewhat, but we don't really see much of it in the later MCU,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it becomes what's the combination of Hulk and Bruce Banner? It's the name's slipping my mind at the
Oh,
moment.
Professor Hulk.
Professor Hulk, yeah. He kind of just, they kind of just join together. But
Mm-hmm.
in the Incredible Hulk, we kind of see how much he hates the Hulk and how much the people hate the Hulk, especially the U.S. military and General Ross,
Mm-hmm.
who just hate the Hulk and thinks he's like an abomination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I would agree to an extent. So, like, I think The Incredible Hulk is probably the best Hulk movie we've had, but
Well,
is,
that's we only have like three.
yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on what Hulk movies you consider, because we've had, like, if we include, like, the 70s live action tie in movies,
Well, they're like TV movies, so I don't know
yeah.
if
But, like,
you count.
including those, we've only had, like, let me count. 3 plus 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. We've only had 5 Hulk movies, and only 2 of them were like big screen, like blockbusters. So this one's
Hmm.
definitely the best, I will say. I got to give it credit for that. Um but overall, like, I don't know. I'm sort of on a middle ground with this movie because, like, I remember watching it and being like, yeah, that was all right, but then never having any desire to like see it again, and I like hardly think about it because it wasn't seen as that great a movie. Obviously, and the fallout they had Marvel and Edward Norton, and then they recast him as Mark Ruffalo for Avengers. I feel like after all of that's been said and done, that movie has fallen so far into the realm of obscurity that like almost no one watches it, I feel like.
It's almost forgotten about.
Yeah. In fact,
It doesn't
oh sorry, go ahead.
it doesn't really do much in the MCU because compared to different actor now,
Mm-hmm.
the only characters introduced pivotal to MCU was Hulk
Mm-hmm.
and General Ross, and
Yeah.
Abomination, who's only been used once in
Mm-hmm.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, and that didn't make any sense to me. But again, that's going to be saved for our Shang-Chi review that should be coming out shortly. Wink, wink. Um, but anyways, yeah. So again, it doesn't weigh a whole lot. I feel like it would have, but then it decided to brush it off. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's just a really rocky movie, I guess, in terms of the MCU and stuff. And again, it's been a long time since I've seen it, so I don't remember Edward Norton's Bruce Banner / Hulk that much. But I do know what I do remember is that part of the reason the movie ended up the way it did was because of Edward Norton, in a negative way, because he kept wanting to do one thing. Here's the thing. So let me backtrack a little bit. I was talking to a friend of mine, who's a few years younger than me, and he was just getting into watching like all the MCU movies straight through, and he completely forgot the
Hmm.
Incredible Hulk. Okay, so I was talking to him about it, and I was like, so here's kind of what was happening during the Incredible Hulk time. Marvel was just getting started, and Iron Man was a super surprise hit because it was a disaster during the production of that movie because they didn't have the script done. No one knew what they were doing. It was crazy. So it's a miracle that it turned out to be as good as it was. So when the Incredible Hulk came around, they had an idea, but I think the problem was now that they have an idea, they had this high-profile actor in Edward Norton who wants to like call some shots. Get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because back when they were doing Iron Man, Marvel Studios starting off, it's almost like I don't know that they did this, but it would make sense if they leaned on Robert Downey Jr. for the movie. And I think that's also why you get the MCU Iron Man being drastically different from the comics Iron Man. At least when it started, I know they've changed it to make him a little more Robert Downey Jr. esque. But they did that, and then they tried to do the same thing and hired another big high profile actor for Edward Norton. Except this time the studio had an idea what they wanted to do with the movie, and I think there was a clash. Which is ultimately it was that and it was money, I think. It led to the whole Edward Norton problem. But yeah, like honestly, I think the movie's forgettable. I'm not saying that it's bad, but sort of to play devil's advocate here, I personally I watched it once. I've never seen it again, nor do I feel like I really need to watch it again to understand anything.
I would agree, but it's definitely forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
And especially they kind of reintroduced General Ross in Civil War then.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of just it's almost like how they do in comics, like retconning. They kind of just retcon Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, oh yeah, didn't really happen. Because they never mentioned Betty again or.
Yeah. I mean, they make a reference here or there to it, but I think the last reference, other than, General Ross being in it, was when he's talking about which I don't even remember if this was actually in the movie, if this was a deleted scene, but him putting a bullet in his mouth and the other guy spit it out in the Avengers.
I remember when Natasha Romanoff's going to pick up Bruce Banner. I can't. Yeah, I don't know if that was a deleted scene or in the movie. I can't remember.
Yeah, but yeah, he made that comment though when he was in the helicarrier. When they were all fighting, it was all getting tense before the thing blew up.
I kind of remember. I can't remember if it's in the movie or not though.
Yeah, I just can't remember if the scene was in the movie where he tried to shoot himself.
Oh no, I know the scene wasn't, but it was mentioned.
Okay, yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I get what you're talking about now.
Yeah, that scene. I know the scene was definitely in the video game though, because I have the Incredible Hulk video game. But yeah, I don't know. So I don't. Yeah, again, it's so weird. I will say Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. I love him. Fantastic. But yeah,
More goofier version.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I mean, that's all I really have on that movie. You got any other closing thoughts before we chug along?
Not much on it. I know, I've seen it a lot more because for some reason it's my father's favorite Marvel movie.
Oh wow.
I'm not really sure why, but it just overexposure as a child to the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, actually, I did think of one more thing to say about it. Come to think of it, so the MCU Hulk. The one thing I will say I do not like about this movie, better than the 2000, I think it was 2003 movie Hulk. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's a good movie because it's not, but Hulk. The one thing I liked about that they played into very well is the angrier Hulk gets, the stronger he's supposed to become. Which in the MCU, he just kind of seems to be the same size the whole time. Whereas in that movie, you would literally see him get bigger and bigger as people kept trying to fight him and stuff. I thought that was cool, at least. I don't know if that's, but I mean, that's one thing I will say I like better about the 2003 than the Incredible Hulk. But I mean, that's just more of a nitpick than anything.
The 2003 one has a lot of it's really campy compared to the Incredible Hulk. It's supposed to be like a comic almost.
Yeah. Well, with a lot of their filming techniques, yeah, it looks a lot like this video right here, where there's all these crops and the way I'm looking at it right now, the screen. I'm up here, you're down here, and it's two separate boxes. They would do stuff like that all the time, these funky transitions and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting movie. So
what's your next pick?
Yes, my next pick. I got to think about how controversial these are, though, if you want me to do it in a controversial order, because I tend to be a very controversial individual. Let's go with this one. I'm going to pick as my next one the 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I had that.
Oh, okay, great. So we can both state our cases.
Man.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I have not seen it in a long time, so I'm only going off what I remember seeing. But I'll start with the bad stuff about it, okay? The Turtles look terrible, okay? I'm not going to deny that. But even in their terrible CGI and stuff, there are some really cool design details. For one, I like how, they always have their ninja masks, right? I like how Raph's mask is different and covers, his whole head, the whole way, back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a nice touch because I think that kind of it feels right for the character. Especially because he's the one who keeps threatening to go off and go solo, and so him being sort of the odd man out, I think just kind of makes sense with the masks. I know it's a really small detail, but I also the cast was awesome. You had specifically April O'Neil, played by Megan Fox, and then you had that other guy whose name I forget, but he was Will Arnett. I love Will Arnett, so I just gotta geek out about that a little bit. But I think that was great. And I think the plot was pretty good too. I mean, I have no complaints. The final battle was awesome with Shredder and the big mech on that tower and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I just really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not like a diehard Ninja Turtles guy, so maybe that's why I enjoyed it. I've never actually read a Ninja Turtles comic. Um, so I don't know if I'm just talking without knowing anything, but just from a pure enjoyment standard, I thought it was a great movie. I enjoyed it. It's one that I'm definitely a-okay with watching again. But yeah, it's short case for me. But what about you?
So I've always been a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, like the cartoons and everything. Never really read much of the comics. I know it's a lot darker in the comics than any of the cartoons or anything,
Yeah.
but I've always loved the cartoons, especially well, it's not the newest Nickelodeon one now, but the one that was out when we would have been a little younger,
Is it
or
the
like 10 years old, maybe.
Yeah, the one oh shoot, it had what's his name? Sean Astin, the Lord of the Rings guy, Sam. He voiced Raph, didn't he? In that one?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. That was like 2010's one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's always like I like that animated show, and I thought that was really good. And the movie was yeah, like you said, the turtle design was terrible,
Mm-hmm.
but the action sequences were kind of cool with the turtles.
Oh yeah.
Like, and the CGI was done, I thought pretty well
Mm-hmm.
for this like Nickelodeon movie, which never Nickelodeon movies never seem to be the top tier
Whoa,
best of
whoa, whoa.
movies.
Hold up. Nacho Libre though. That is
Okay,
a
Nacho
comedy
Libre, that's an
classic.
exception. That's an
Okay.
exception.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I thought TMNT was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said with Raphael, I loved Raphael in the movie. And I think it was Alan Richardson or Richson. He plays Hawk in Titans. If you've watched Titans.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think it's Alan Richardson. I know it's Alan R or something,
Mm-hmm.
but he voices Raphael in the movie,
I did
and
not
I
know
love
that.
him as Raphael in that.
That is a great casting choice though, gotta say. Like in retrospective, that's a great casting choice.
Yeah, you can like really tell like him as Hawk. You're like, wow, like that definitely is the voice of Raphael.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also like the with Donatello. He had like he didn't just have his mask. He had like the goggles over his mask and the
Yeah, the
glasses and
Ghostbusters
tech stuff
goggles.
all over his head. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was really cool too. How like
Yeah.
each one kind of had their own distinct look in their face.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And then like again, I'm not saying the CGI was good. CGI was not very good if you ask me, but like the character designs in general, again, were really good at like distinguishing the personalities of the characters.
Yeah, that's what I think
Mm-hmm.
the CGI on the character like design was
Mm-hmm.
the only good CGI in the movie, pretty much.
Oh yeah. Another thing I gotta say though too, the way that they handled the characters all seemed, again, just from everything I've seen, I haven't read the comics, but from all the exposure I've had to Ninja Turtles in the past, it seemed very true to the characters, the way that they were all handled.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, they're all distinct and different, not
Mm-hmm.
just the same.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And they're all the same turtles we grew up with. Like they don't
Mm-hmm.
change anything about their personalities. They just kind of like up the amp on it, maybe just a little of all their personalities, but keep them the same.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I just started picturing like the turtle without their mask on because I remember Michelangelo was the first to take his mask off,
Oh
and now
yeah,
I'm just like picturing the weird
that was
turtle
that was very
flick
weird.
thing.
I completely forgot about that until you brought it up. Why did you put that image in my head? Oof. Now I will say though, the sequel, Out of the Shadows, I wanted it to be good so badly, and I was very disappointed.
It could have been a lot better, but I think they're
Mm-hmm.
rebooting it now. Correct? They're making new.
I think I heard they're rebooting it, but as like a like full like animated movies, but like big budget animated movies.
Oh, that'd be a lot better.
Yeah, I think I heard again. This is gonna sound really weird, but I'm pretty sure I heard this somewhere. I think I heard like Seth Rogen's involved in some way, shape, or form.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
haven't heard much about it. I know they are doing like a reboot of
Mm-hmm.
the Turtles, but
Yeah, but yeah, Out of the Shadows again. I know it's something we were talking about. Kind of disappointing, and I'm mostly disappointed because they cast Stephen Amell as
it's
Casey
Casey
Jones,
Jones.
and I'm like, holy
Yeah,
crap, this is gonna be awesome. And then like he doesn't do much the whole movie, and he only wears the mask in one scene.
and he doesn't have the hair either,
Yeah, he doesn't have that. Which
which is a big thing about Casey Jones.
Yeah, that's forgivable for me because I think when dudes have hair like that, it's kind of weird most of the time. But I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But
And I guess it was more of an '80s style like mullet back in the day too.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, Casey
Or
Jones'
yeah, but
hair.
like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it, yeah, the Casey Jones hair thing is probably more of a style from like just that time period
Mhm.
than
Yeah,
the now.
exactly. But like again, if we're talking about Casey Jones' hair, if we look at Nightwing, okay, like Nightwing, he had some hair going on, back when he first came out. Actually, not when he first came out. A
Yeah.
little after it came out, like when he moved into the '90s. But they were able to successfully transition out of that. Um, but I thought it was great because I think again that hair choice is very odd.
Mhm.
But anyways, I think it was a great movie in general. Not the best comic book movie, but certainly not the worst. So any final thoughts on Ninja Turtles 2014?
No, this is Cowabunga.
Oh yeah. Um. So yes, I believe it's your next turn for your things. How many more do you guys have left? Because
Oh,
I
I just have
stopped
one
counting.
more since you pulled off two of mine.
Okay, because I have two more then. So yeah, okay. Carry on. We'll see.
Right. X-Men First Class.
Really? You think that was bad, or you think that people think that's bad?
I've never heard anyone really talk about it.
Interesting.
I think most like X-Men First, because what year did that, I can't think what year that came out right now.
That was
It's kind of
I think it
slipping
was
my
like
mind. Was that
2011. I think.
20? Yeah, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just over. Like no one ever talks about it. It's completely overlooked. But it introduces us to all these new versions of the characters that
Mm-hmm.
I think are all better than the original versions. Especially oh, I can't think of who plays Magneto's name at the. It's slipping my mind.
Oh, I don't remember that guy's name either. The Assassin's Creed guy.
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna bother me. But I love his origin as Magneto in this movie
Mm-hmm.
with Kevin Bacon set up as like the Nazi guy who kind of like took his mother away from him and like experimented on him. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that we get to see Magneto's true origin in this movie, unlike we haven't seen in like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing we've seen his origin in live action, at least. At least I don't recall in the original three X-Men a mention of his Jewish heritage or
Well,
origin.
there's the one scene. I forget what movie this was in, but there's the one scene at the beginning of one of the movies where, again, it's very similar to what I think it's the first X-Men movie. Come to think of it, but it's literally sort of like the same thing with when he's outside in the rain at the gates, right? The metal
Mhm.
gates, and he like pulls them. Like something similar happens in one of the first X-Men movies, kind of establishing Magneto. But it's just a short scene. They don't have the whole Kevin Bacon or anything like that. So they don't really expand upon it other than like, oh, he has a reason to be evil.
Yeah, also I love Kevin Bacon's villain. I can't think of the villain's name.
It's Sebastian something. Sebastian Shaw, that's it.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love his villain, and I love the whole thing with the coin at the end
Oh
when he
yeah.
takes the coin, the like Nazi coin, and puts it through his head. I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
coolest scenes.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree.
But other than like the Magneto and Charles Xavier parts of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and of course Mystique. I love Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique
Mm-hmm.
in this movie at least. I didn't really like her in the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
like I guess I don't know if you call it a prequel trilogy or sequel trilogy or whatever
Yeah.
Fox
Mm-hmm.
considers that in that trilogy. I liked her performance in this one, and I love Charles Xavier in it. But I think
Mm-hmm.
other this one kind of the only one that stands out of that new trilogy, and they don't really give like us any big X-Men names. Like they have Havoc, and that's really the biggest one,
Mm-hmm.
and Darwin who just dies.
Yeah.
He's like his whole thing is he can't die,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of just ruin that. But
Definitely.
I think Magneto in specific and Professor X stand out in that movie and kind of make it really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. But yeah, I love First Class. Um, it's not my favorite X-Men movie, but it's up there. It's like I don't know, maybe my second favorite. Come to think of it, because again, this is another sort of hot take, but I think my favorite might be Apocalypse. Um,
It's Quicksilver,
yeah,
yeah.
and honestly, that scene is part of the reason why I love it so much, Apocalypse. But for First Class, anyways, I think again, sort of building on what you said, the characters were handled very well. Um, The only thing that I disagree with that you said is I'm not a fan of Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique. Um, because I feel like this is just kind of Jennifer Lawrence in general. I feel like every movie she's in, I only really see her have like one attitude or like face emotion. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I think it's also weird because Mystique is, and again, I've never read into the X-Men comics a huge bit, but to my knowledge, Mystique is usually a pretty like hardcore villain. They make her very gray in the latest, for lack of a better term, X-Men movie series, which I'm not.
Yeah, I think it was because of the actress that they had.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think because Jennifer Lawrence, they didn't want to make her like a bad character.
Hmm.
She was a likable actress at the time.
Yeah. But I don't know. I just think that's weird. It's never really clicked with me.
I don't think it's talked about a lot. I never hear
Hmm.
anyone really talk about it, or I guess because most the Fox stuff is kind of forgotten about. Besides
Hmm.
like Logan,
Yeah. The Wolverine stuff, I guess, is like the most remembered stuff. But also, like the X-Men franchise by Fox, it really fizzled out, and it did not end very well. Because the last two
yes,
movies that it had were Dark Phoenix, which I
which
personally think,
oh, it
I
was
know,
so bad.
I think that is the worst X-Men movie ever made. Like, you probably can't change my mind because there's enough
It's
good
so much
stuff.
worse than Last Stand.
Yes. Um, we'll get to that later. Anyways, um, hint hint. So yeah, I think Dark Phoenix is terrible. And then it ended with I think the last X-Men film they did was New Mutants, which I haven't even seen, but the fact that it came out and I didn't even realize it came out because it had like a bunch of reshoots apparently and kept getting delayed and delayed.
They kept changing. It was originally supposed to be like a horror movie, but they kept
Hmm.
changing it, and
Yeah. So I haven't seen it and I think that's intentional because I'm assuming it's not very good. I have no burning desire to see it anytime soon. But yeah, it really like did not end on a good note at all, which is very unfortunate because they're great characters.
mhm.
Any final thoughts, quick, on First Class?
I don't got anything. I just think it set up a good future, and Fox kind of fumbled that future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. I'll move on to my next pick, okay? And since you kind of hinted at it, I'll put this one next. But X-Men: Last Stand, okay?
Oh man.
Yeah. So let me make my case quick. Okay? The biggest thing I hear people complain about with Last Stand is that they butcher the Dark Phoenix story arc. Okay. I've never read it. I'm sure it's really good from what I've heard from people. But everything else they do, I really like in the movie. So, like, they bring in Beast, who's played by that guy whose name I forget, who was in some type of TV show. I forget. I know. I'm making a great case right now, aren't I?
Yeah, it really helped me out figuring it out.
Yeah. Shoot, what was the show? Anyways, we'll get
Trying
back
to
to
look
it
at
later. But they bring in Beast. They kill off Cyclops though. I don't like them doing that. Even though James
which is like
Marsden's
he's one of the coolest.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think he's a bit of a jerk, quite honestly. James Marsden
James
Cyclops.
Marsden didn't do a good. I don't think he did good as Cyclops. As good as he could have done.
Yeah, I don't know, but they killed him off, which I wasn't exactly happy about. Um, but I don't know. I think they made it, I think, to be an end, a conclusion, and they did that, and I think they did it fairly well, especially considering the other X-Men movies where they tried to conclude things. Cough, cough. Dark Phoenix. Um, but and there's a lot of. I think it's a fun movie to watch too. Okay, whether it's for just like entertainment or a little bit of comedy here and there. Like I'm not going to repeat it because I keep my language clean. But on the Juggernaut, that line, right?
Juggernaut's so
I know.
he's so ridiculous.
It's like
I love him though. It's funny.
exactly. It's like for me, it's like the same concept as Batman and Robin, where it's with Juggernaut specifically, not the movie I'm saying, but for Juggernaut, he's so bad he's good. And I think that's just it's funny because he's such a caricature of himself. Um, but yeah, I don't know, and I just feel like the way they handle the characters is still really good, other than butchering the Dark Phoenix and all the other stuff. And I think it's really interesting. First of all, okay, I'm kind of building into this. The mutant cure that they make or whatever, that's really interesting, and I think it's because like nowadays, filming this in 2022, coronavirus, vaccine, and stuff. I think a lot of that is still applicable today. It still touches on our
Mhm.
modern topics. Because, you know, you got your people who are like, I guess, anti-mutant, and, you know, anti-mutant militaries that are like shooting people with cures, which, you know, is, I guess, against their right. I mean, they should be able to choose whether or not they want to be cured. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It brings up some ethical conversation, which I think is interesting, which is what I think.
Especially in today. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I know the X-Men comics, everything in general, is supposed to bring up those type of ethical conversations. That's why they were made originally, to bring up, you know, talk about racism.
Mhm.
So I think it does that job, and I don't think they could have seen it work the way it's been working now. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's great. I think the mutant cure plot is really interesting, and I think the final battle is debatably, I might say it's my favorite final battle in all the X-Men movies. Because we get to see a lot of character shine, a few new ones, a few old ones. And then you have Magneto lifting up the Golden Gate Bridge, okay? Like, that is awesome. But anyway, so I'll let you tell me why I'm wrong.
So I pulled up Kelsey Grammer plays the Beast from Frasier and Cheers.
Yes, Frasier. That's the movie. That's
That's
the series I was thinking about. Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
yeah, that's serious. That's serious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I remember it
Yeah.
now, and that was. But I don't really remember much The Last Stand. I do. I remember slightly remember seeing it in theaters. I was 4 at the time. Like, I remember because my parents took me to see like pretty much everything in theaters once I turned 4.
Yeah.
But I do remember the Juggernaut scene where he's just breaking through all the walls. And who's is he? Is it Kitty Pryde he's against?
Yeah, he's chasing Kitty
He's going
Pryde.
against who just keeps. Yeah, and he's like just a total. They pretty much like a meathead. He's just a meathead in this movie. He's an idiot,
Mm-hmm.
which no brain, just all muscle.
Yeah.
Which I do like. I do love the Juggernaut in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's pretty hilarious.
But I think there's just too much going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's supposed to be like a finale to the series, but they're kind of just like there's so much just happening. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem to fit all well together.
Yeah. I see what you mean, but I mean, yeah. Except, like,
Especially while trying to do the Phoenix Force also.
yeah, if they didn't try to do Dark Phoenix and they just took that out, I think the movie would be considered one of the best X-Men movies, quite honestly. Because that's where I hear everyone complain about. And you did bring up a good point with the plot having a lot of stuff in it. So you would have taken that out. It would save the angry fanboys, and it would save the plot from being too overbloated. And it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
I just think I enjoy the movie. You know, I can pop it in, I can watch it, and I can enjoy myself. So that's my pick. Did you have another one, or are you out? Because I know we had a lot of the same.
I am out because there were 2 that were the same.
Okay. Because I think I still have one more. Let me take a head count here. Yeah, I should have one more. So we'll dive into that one. You know what this next one is?
So I know it's your least worst of.
Yes. I think this is the one that most people can see as being an okay movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got any guesses? I'll give you a hint. So you guys weren't here. I was talking to Colin on Sunday, okay, and this movie came up, and I sort of listed him a bunch of reasons already, which is sort of what inspired me to do this as our podcast episode. But you know what movie I'm talking about?
Is it Spider-Man 3?
Yes, Spider-Man 3. So, Spider-Man 3. Here's where we begin, I suppose. Now, I like Spider-Man 3, okay? I enjoy the movie. I guess the problems with it are it's got too much going on. I honestly have a really hard time thinking about why people hate this movie so much. I get there's a lot going on. There's a lot of villains, and, you know, maybe they could have treated some stuff better. The one thing I do not like, though, is the Uncle Ben retcon with Sandman.
That was dumb.
Yeah, that just felt kind of weird and forced. Another thing, this is something that I know a lot of people that I've heard don't like. They do not like how they handled Venom. They did not like Topher Grace's Venom, and I'm here to defend all of that, okay? I know you're going to think I'm insane for this, but hear me out, okay? So, Venom as a character, okay? I'm talking about the symbiote here. The symbiote is made to copy its host, okay? I know in Marvel Comics they've changed that a lot recently, and it's not so much the same thing. You know, Venom's a solo hero. He hardly does anything that Spider-Man does. Now he's just kind of does his own thing, whatever. In the Venom movie, they do that too, and he's completely detached from Spider-Man. They take the Spider-Man logo off his chest. I think that's totally fine. But if we go back to Venom's origins, that's what Venom was supposed to do. Okay, he copies someone, he enhances their powers. If he is able to detach from his host, the next host he goes to, he brings all the same things over, all the memories, all the powers and stuff. I keep thinking back to I really like the '90s Spider-Man cartoon, and
I love the Venom in that so much.
oh yeah, and again, they handle that very well, I think, as well. But if you sit and think about it, in the '90s cartoon, literally that Venom is just doing what Spider-Man does, but a little better. So it makes sense the way that they did that with Eddie being Venom. I know that's not people's biggest complaints, but I'm building up to it, trust me. The next thing is like the black suit just being basically a black version of the suit with a different Spider-Man logo. Okay. Personally, I love that black suit. I know it is not the comic black suit with the big white spider and the white eyes and everything else is black. But I think there's a sense of style that every movie has. It should have a sense of style, like consistency. And I think that the black suit that they had for the movie and for the movie series fit really well with the themes and the tones and the colors that they were portraying with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, okay? I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying I liked it, okay? The other thing with Venom is Topher Grace and him not being bulky enough for the character, okay? For one thing, him not being bulky enough is just a small issue. I think they probably just should have used some CGI or something and just made him bigger, okay? That's what they did with Tom Hardy's Venom. They could have just done it. So I think that's just a misstep that the studio took. I don't really hold it against them because Topher Grace's Venom that we get is completely different. He is, what's the term I'm looking for? He's not bulky, but he still, I think, has the characteristics of Venom that are really good. Again, if we go back to the 90s cartoon, the same motivation and everything is still there. It's almost like copied and pasted with some small changes. But yeah, other than the look, I don't see any problems with Topher Grace's Venom. I think he does a great job acting in that movie. I can't really complain. And then I guess we'll get on to like Harry Osborn and the New Goblin. That could have been handled a little better. I forget where I heard this, but I think it was hilarious. They basically said that the New Goblin costume looks like he's getting ready to play some paintball, which, yeah, it does.
I see that.
Yeah. So, yeah, the costume's a bit of a mess. But I think, the ending to the Peter-Harry dynamic and how the symbiote tied into that, I like that. I think that was executed well, in my opinion. Then there's the whole Sandman plot, too, and then the whole Peter and MJ plot. The Sandman plot seemed kind of boring to me. I think that's the weakest part of the movie, in my opinion, which is really weird because Sam Raimi wanted to do Sandman first and foremost, and then because the studio was like, no, we want you to put Venom in this too, it's unfortunate that Sandman, in my opinion anyways, got the back burner. And then there's the whole Peter MJ thing, which that was also kind of weak, I guess, because I just rewatched Spider-Man 3 not too long ago. And what happened was MJ was like, oh, I'm struggling with something right now. And Peter's like, oh, it's okay. I've been there. Here's how you get past it. Which I totally get because honestly, like mentally, that's like the first place I go whenever someone says they have problems with stuff. And then they're kind of struggling through that, especially with MJ's career not going well. But that's kind of all that happens. And then, she's working as a waitress. Then because of the symbiote, he hits her and decides to get rid of it because he knows he's becoming a terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, again, they couldn't prioritize everything, and I understand how that makes some plot points weaker than others, but I don't think any of the plot points themselves are really bad per se. Now, I will get on to Bully Maguire, okay? Bully Maguire stuff was incredibly cringy, but especially nowadays with how much of a meme it's become, I love it, okay? Like, Bully Maguire memes are some of the greatest ones on the internet right now. Anyways, so Colin, I know you don't agree that Spider-Man 3 is very good, so I'll hear your side of the story.
Also, like in the past month, I've watched it 3 times now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's more of a comedy than anything. Like, first and foremost, it's a comedy. It is not like a superhero action movie. Like, it's just it's so cringy. And you're like, no way people like took this movie seriously when it came out. But I can't agree with you that the Sandman thing, how Sam Raimi wanted to do that and it just got pushed. Because I know Sam Raimi didn't want to do the symbiote. That was
Mm-hmm.
something that wasn't in his plan. Like studio involvement just kind of just like, we want you to do the symbiote. Sam Raimi was like, oh, well, I guess I have to do it. So he was kind of pushed to do that. And you can
Mm-hmm.
tell with how the symbiote turned out in the movie, it was just kind of like it wasn't built up much.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there wasn't much there. And that's why I hate the symbiote. Especially, I know you like the suit, but I hate it. I think it's so stupid. So, like, you know how he has this, it's just a suit he puts on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a new suit he puts on. Like in the comics, it's just the symbiote forms to him to create a suit. Like, he doesn't have to put on a suit or anything. It just forms to him and puts a suit
Mm-hmm.
on for him. Like, I think that would have been such a cool concept in the movie. But like you said, it kind of fits the tone
Mm-hmm.
for the Sam Raimi trilogy. But I
Yeah.
think I just didn't really like how they did that. I thought that was kind of dumbing it down, I guess, or
Mm-hmm.
watering the symbiote down of like its true capabilities and power.
Yeah.
You don't really see how the symbiote makes Peter stronger either. There's no
Mm-hmm.
like, it just kind of makes him evil. We don't see how the symbiote like draws off negative emotion or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes him bad.
I suppose you have a point. I mean, I can see that. I will say though, with the symbiote and like taking off and stuff, I think there was some deleted footage, which again, this probably should have been in the film. Like that would have been better. I think I just remember seeing it with promotionals back in 2007 when the movie came out, of like Peter like not putting his symbiote suit on, but then seeing that it's on him, like it put itself onto him. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't want to
Hmm.
detach from him. I mean, I think that's the idea they were trying to give. I don't think that footage actually made it to the movie, but I'm pretty sure I've seen some promotionals out there with something like that. Like,
That would have made a lot of sense.
yeah, because it is a living creature. The one thing though, I will say, again, this is a defending Venom, but compared to like the Tom Hardy Venom movie, okay, I have never liked the idea of the symbiotes just being able to jump from host to host all the time, okay? And I think, again, with the character's origins of the symbiote, it being able to attach to one person and then being like, I'm stuck to you until either you die or, something happens. Because if you look at the struggle in the movie, which I gotta say, the scene where he takes the black suit off is just awesome in my opinion. But if you look at the struggle,
I like that.
yeah, but the struggle he goes through during that scene to get the suit off, and then you have it compared to Tom Hardy's Venom, where there's like 3 different hosts in the first Venom movie, and then in the second Venom movie, he's basically like person hopping. Spoiler alert. He's like person hopping the symbiote. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And it's like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of that personally. Like, I don't want to say, because I know this is going to sound really weird, and I'm not sure I quite agree with this. I don't want to say I like how the symbiote was handled better in Spider-Man 3 than in Venom, but I will say I like the aspects of the symbiote that they highlighted in Spider-Man 3 better than the ones that they highlighted in Venom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not saying Venom's bad. I love Venom. I think the movies, they're good. I like them. But, yeah, it's interesting. So, any more thoughts on Spider-Man 3 before we wrap things up?
I think one thing that made me so mad in Spider-Man 3 is so since the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, they've been setting up like Harry's revenge on Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially at the end of the second one, you see like he finds all the goblin stuff and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Oh, I have to like continue." He doesn't know like his father was the goblin yet, but he finds all the goblin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's like he's going to pick up this legacy and pick up where the goblin left off in destroying Spider-Man. And then they kind of just like in the third one are just like, well, we'll have like a scene at the beginning for that, then like a scene towards the end, and then that's it. We're not gonna make the new Goblin a major villain at all, which was
Mm-hmm.
obviously a plan since the first Spider-Man movie was to make Harry become the next Goblin and be the next big villain, and they kind of just threw that away in Spider-Man 3, kind of
Mm-hmm.
ruined it to what it could have been.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess my defense for that would be like growing up as a kid, like I didn't read. I had a really interesting upbringing, with like media and stuff in general. But like growing up, I watched like the '90s Spider-Man cartoon. I watched the Spider-Man movies, and that was most of the exposure I got to superhero stuff. A few other cartoons here and there. So growing up, not reading comics, to me, I didn't know that Harry was supposed to become the next Green Goblin. I just knew that Harry was angry and he hated Spider-Man, which is going to make things weird for Peter because, that's how things were. But I mean, in the '90s cartoon, doesn't Harry become Spider-Man at one? Not Spider-Man. Harry becomes Green Goblin at one point.
I think so.
Okay, I don't remember that.
I
Though,
haven't seen that. I haven't rewatched all the cartoon in a while.
Yeah, but point I'm trying to make is I wasn't expecting that at all. So me not expecting anything like that to happen in Spider-Man 3, I think is part of the reason why I didn't mind it. Because I knew he wanted to take his revenge. I just didn't think it was going to be as big. I didn't have as big of an expectation, I suppose, as you and some other fans might have had. Anyways, that's just my opinion. I know people hate Spider-Man 3, love it or hate it. They're just opinions, It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
When this goes up on YouTube, if people watch it, hopefully they will. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of comments, They're going to be fun to read, but yeah, it's going to be crazy. So, any final thoughts on anything we talked, Colin, before we wrap it up?
Not much on everything overall. I think we did agree on some levels on almost everything to a certain extent.
Exactly. But yeah, it's been an interesting talk. I'm glad we got a chance to do this, though. That's exciting. But for all you Friendly Neighborhood podcast fans out there, we have a lot of episodes we have planned that should hopefully be coming out shortly. We're going to, again, work with schedules, see what we can do about that. But just for some notice, we're planning on talking about just about every Marvel movie, given our reviews this past year, 2021, kind of our thoughts, what we thought, and a few other things planned as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Colin, anything to say for the viewers before we skedaddle?
Thank you for listening or watching.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, I'm Kyle Swope, and I will catch you guys next time. See you guys all later.